All right. Now we're getting closer to, I think, why everybody's here and everybody's so anxious and listening and want to hear our guest speaker, Mr. Eugene Pettis. And I'm going to bring on somebody who has a very unique perspective of Mr. Pettis to give his introduction. So I'll now turn it over to Chanel Pettis Bright, an attorney at Rumberger, Kirk & Caldwell, who is also Mr. Pettis's daughter.
Thank you, LaShonda. Thanks, Dad. You know, when LaShonda called me and told me who our luncheon speaker was going to be, and she asked me if I would introduce him, it became increasingly obvious why the OCBA felt the need to pay everyone $15 to guarantee attendance. Also, she probably asked me because the speaker is my dad, Eugene Pettis. If there's anything that I've learned over the numerous occasions that I've listened to my dad speak, it's that he really does not like introductions. He doesn't like to sit and listen to his accolades be read out loud, probably because he has so many of them. So in order to, you know, he just wants to get to the mic and get to the point and the topic that he was brought in to talk about. So I'm going to be the good daughter that I am, and I'm going to adhere to his wishes. I'm not going to give you a detailed introduction. But if I did give you one of those introductions, I probably wouldn't spend my time sitting here telling you that he's the co-founder of Halixer, Pettis & Schwam, which has offices in Fort Lauderdale and Orlando. And I probably wouldn't even tell you that in 2013, he served as the first Black president of the Florida Bar. I'd probably spend my time giving you some of those lesser known fun facts about him. Things such as at the age of 60, he still likes to pronounce the L in the word salmon. He also likes a good TikTok video, and he sends it to my sister and I often, even though we as millennials don't even have accounts ourselves. But I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I told myself I would not do one of those introductions. I'll just cut to the chase. You know, if you're interested in learning more about him, you can Google him in your free time and read some of the things that he's involved in. And if you did do that, you'd probably see that in addition to the law, he is very passionate about helping others and serving his community and standing up for what's right. This is increasingly important now more than ever due to the heightened awareness of racial injustice, police brutality, and the killings of Black Americans across our country. One way that he helps aid in righting these wrongs is by doing a new speaker series called Can We Talk, where he brings a diverse panel together for a candid conversation, not just on these issues, but on solutions to the issues, some of those which I'm sure we'll hear about this afternoon. But again, it's so hard. I got to reel myself back in. I said I would keep it short and sweet and not give you the details. So doing that, I welcome to our virtual stage my dad, Eugene Pettis.
Thank you, sweetheart. I've done a lot of Zoom events. I've never seen so much enthusiasm on a Zoom conference as I heard. It leads me to truly renew my appreciation of you all's Bar Association. It's absolutely one of the best in the state. LaShonda, I have given a number of I even gave a Zoom commencement speech for one of our schools here. And I've always been seated, but given the significance of your presidency, this is the first Zoom that I'm standing, and it's in honor of you, LaShonda. I could not be more proud of your rise to the presidency of the Orange County Bar Association. You have one of the great bar associations and one of the great teams. There are occasions when people find leadership positions, and other occasions where a moment in time finds its leader. We are living in such a time where this country's reckoning with social justice has found you to lead the way towards a more just profession and society. On June 28th of 2013, when I was sworn in as Florida Bar President, I closed my acceptance speech stating, in closing, let's remind ourselves of the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, that an individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to a broader concerns of all humanity. We're going to reach further, lift higher, and embrace those we come into contact with, so the words of diversity and inclusion will have substantive meaning. That spirit is essential for us to truly stand as one bar with one mission: equality and justice for all. Those words capture today what I believe is the essence of us living as one humanity. We must show concern for each other. If we don't live by that basic fundamental principle, then there will always be discord in our society. If we can't see the beauty and the value of life in each other, irrespective of race, religion, gender, or nationality, then we will always be susceptible to being complicit to racial injustices. Professor Cornel West spoke recently, and he gave this quote that I think is very insightful and striking. He stated, "It takes courage to look in the mirror and see past your reflection to who you really are when you take off the mask. When you're not performing the same old routines and social roles. It takes courage to ask, how did I become so well adjusted to injustice? How did I become so well adjusted to injustice?" And I pose that question to each of you. How did you become so well adjusted to injustice? What does that mean, well adjusted? Because what we are seeing playing out in the streets of America, unfortunately, isn't new. For centuries, there has been an uneven justice in America. There have been two different systems of policing, one in the Black and brown neighborhoods and another in the white community. Two different criminal justice systems. And I share with you that for the last 20 plus years, I've represented law enforcement. I've represented cities across this state. I have seen the insides of internal affairs. I've seen my share of all of it. I speak fact and truth. It is essential in this conversation about social justice that we are authentic in the words we speak. Too long we have been superficial on the discussion of race. It makes us uncomfortable. And as a result, we've had dishonest and incomplete dialogues. Following the May 25th killing of George Floyd, I have written a number of articles and given several speeches. In an editorial, I wrote that lasting change requires a boldness and a degree of impatience. Otherwise, wait till next year, or you're moving too fast will be the bridge of excuses that will connect George Floyd's death to the next one to come, sequel after sequel. When I made that comment in an article, I was prayerful, genuinely prayerful that our supposed reckoning would bring an end to the vicious cycle. But we know that has not been the case. Subsequently, we've had the fatal shooting by police of 27-year-old Rashad Brooks in Atlanta, running away unarmed from the police. Most recently, we had the shooting of Jacob Blake in Wisconsin by police who shot him 7 times in the back at point blank range in front of his 3 sons, ages 3, 5, and 8 years old. A Black man unarmed who told police he had a knife under his seat. In contrast, on Tuesday night, on the same streets of Wisconsin, 2 people were killed by a vigilante who was shooting up the streets. After numerous gunshots and people running everywhere, a 17-year-old white male walks down the street with a long rifle, walking away from the chaos. Rifle strapped across his chest, approaches the police officers who are coming into the area toward him. He raises his hand in surrender. And the police officers gave him a bottle of water and thanked him for his service as somewhat of a civilian street patrol. Central Florida has heard of such a civilian street patrol before, in George Zimmerman's awful death of Trayvon Martin. So we ask ourselves, why that response? Why, after hearing that there was a shooting taking place and seeing a man with a long rifle coming from that area, why not suspect him? I move you back a few years to why Dylan Roof, who killed 9 parishioners at prayer meeting at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, and was on the run for about 18 hours before he was captured. When they captured him, there was not one single bullet fired. Instead, he stated that he was hungry, and they literally took him to Burger King before taking him to jail. I ask you to be honest with yourself and imagine if that was a black man that had shot up a white church and killed 9 and injured scores more. Is there any way that he would have walked out of it alive, let alone would have been taken to get something to eat before jail? I pause for this moment to show you a video clip, and then I'll have a question for you.
This is Jared Stephen Leone. He's 18. He's in City Hall in Beaverton, Oregon. According to him, he's high on mushrooms. So he starts a fight with some cops. They all wrestle, and then Jared grabs the cop's gun and shoots him. More cops jump in. It ends up taking 7 cops 2 full minutes to restrain Jared, and he makes it out alive. This is white privilege. If that idea bothers you, then let's just call it benefit of the doubt. Those cops give Jared the benefit of the doubt that his life matters, that his life is worth saving, even when he takes one of their guns and shoots it. Now, of course, when you're black, you rarely get that benefit of the doubt. Cops murdered Laquan McDonald in less than 30 seconds. Cops killed Jameer Rice in less than 2 seconds. But Jared, he got probation and a fine and just a bump on the forehead.
I give you that clip to ask ourselves why the disparate treatment of admitted mass murderers being shown dignity. People who shoot police officers shown dignity, and unarmed black men being given what really equates to the death penalty on our streets. The honest answer is they don't see those white men as a threat. Despite their deeds, no threat. Yet, for some reason, we've seen time and time and time again, black men justify, in the eyes of some law enforcement, deadly force. Why? Because the police claims they were in fear for their lives. I believe there has to be an awakening, and there has been an awakening by many of my white brothers and sisters here in America and across this world. While some view these tragedies to sound the dog whistles of racism, others see this as a turning point towards a more unified and just society. People can no longer say, as I've heard many people say, many of my friends say, I did not know. They can elect not to do anything about it, but we can't claim anymore ignorance. We all make choices about the type of life we want to live, the type of person we want to be. In times like these, the substance of our being is evident from where we stand and upon what we stand. Are we standing on the right side of justice? Or are we accommodating injustice to protect our own interests? For it is incongruent for us to claim justice yet remain silent when we know such fundamental constitutional rights are being violated of our fellow man. For the providence of our heart is manifest by our words and our deeds. Do the sentiments we express match the actual consequences of our actions? Ask yourself, because in the time of this type of situation, we all come and say, that's really awful, that shouldn't have happened. But do our actual actions reflect what we're saying? When we stop and look introspectively, we will recognize and realize that we tolerate a lot of policies and practices of injustice because they favor us. When hatred, racism, and bigotry raises its head around us, we claim to be disturbed by such acts, but it don't make us uncomfortable enough to change our personal posture. For when you get uncomfortable about something, it makes you move. It makes you shift your stance. When you get uncomfortable sitting, what do? You shift your position. Such action is essential to effectuate social change in our society. We can't remain seated as we have been, acting as if nothing untoward is occurring on our watch as the defenders of the Constitution and our systems of justice. And I speak to you all, speak to your generation, because when we all took the oath of office, we're not just some regular Joe Smo on the street. We are the defenders of the Constitution, and we have promised that we will apply it equally to all, irrespective of color, religion, race, etc. Despite our claim of being uncomfortable about injustices, we see day in and day out. We refuse to really change our position. We don't adjust our posture. Ask why. Let me tell you, and some of you may not like it, others will deny its truth. But I submit to you, nothing's changing, because these old practices that reign just injustices in the lives of so many people are protecting our positions in society. It's protecting our family status. It's keeping us in our comfort zone. It's protecting our wealth. It's keeping us in the select chosen place we want to be. And in the end, those things are more important to us than what we claim to be supporters of equality and justice. But I submit that if these deaths that we're seeing live on color and TV don't convict our hearts, what type of country are we? If the pain of 3 innocent boys of those innocent ages seeing their father gunned down before their eyes doesn't disturb your spirit, then who have we become? Where is our decency? Where is our love for humanity? These are not moments that we should just be flashing past our screen and moving on to the next channel. We need to individually and we need to collectively pause long enough to look inside of ourselves and to recognize, have we gotten too uncomfortable with these and too comfortable with these injustices? In closing, I'll leave you with a few thoughts and challenges. We must acknowledge that there are injustices of Black folk and other minorities in our country, particularly in our system of justice. If we can't agree on that simple fact, that injustices exist and is disproportionately reflecting on people of color, we can't work towards resolving the problem. It should not really be a debate to state that Black Lives Matter. To see that we have to fight to get that statement accepted, and we get pushback on stuff like, well, all lives matter. But if all lives equally mattered, we wouldn't have to claim Black Lives Matter. If all lives matter equally, we wouldn't see the things that are playing out on our street. We just need to be honest about that. There are things that are playing out that don't allow any room for debate, that we need to acknowledge that we're all equal brothers and sisters on this earth. We must, as lawyers, secondly, be the defenders of the principle you claim you want to see in the world. By that I mean it's not enough to state that you support justice, yet listen to comments and participate in conversations that don't reflect that virtue. When you know such tolerance of bigotry, bias, racism is inconsistent with respect for all people, if you don't check it, you are a part of the problem. We're all parts of the problem. When George Floyd got killed, I was meditating and walking one morning, and the only thing that came to my mind is, I can't scream silently anymore. And what that meant to me was that these things have disturbed me for a lifetime. I could tell you people that I've seen from my community get killed at the hands of police officers. I've been there. I've been on that side. I've been on the other side. I've defended it. But I'm no longer able to scream silently. We have an obligation to speak up and be a part of the conversation, be a part of the change. That's why we're given these platforms as lawyers. You also need to let your voice be heard. It needs to be heard at the dinner table, at work, at your church, synagogue, wherever you go to worship, in your inner circle, speaking truth to power? Do those things, do the people that know you best honestly know that you as one that's fighting for justice for all people? Or is this just a passing thought you have after seeing the headlines stories, but you've kept it to yourself? You've not even let the people closest to you know your position. I have people call me from all around the state and the country telling me how disturbed they are. I appreciate those calls. But more importantly, I need them to reach the people they know and let them know how disturbed they are and they're not tolerating it anymore. That's how we get social change. Is your current attention to this issue of racial injustice merely an emotional convenience in the face of the tragedies that we see? A clear voice from the majority community, all of our brothers and sisters, all of humanity, and those that are privileged, carries a great weight in the ongoing dialogue of change. Real justice reform requires stick-to-itiveness. You must commit to the long struggle of taking steps to advocate for the vulnerable and the change of social structures that prevent the changes and allow for these injustices. It takes a village of humanity to effectuate change. I leave you with a quote from Abraham Joshua Heschel, one of the leading Jewish theologians and philosophers of the 20th century. He was good friends with Dr. Martin Luther King. He stated, "Morally speaking, there is no limit to the concern one must feel for the suffering of human beings. That indifference to evil is worse than evil itself. That in a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible." What we see playing out in our society, this is not a time for people of good moral conscience and values to stand silently. It is not a time for us to take it lightly. This is a time that's a defining moment in our society. Stop and look. You see things happening. You see things happening that have never happened before. Ask yourself, where do you want to be on the side of history when it comes to true social change? We have to be open. We have to be authentic. We have to be committed to making the change. And nobody has the absolute final answer. But our conversation will lead us, just as we do in mediations and litigation, our conversations leads us to a point of acceptance that we can make this world better for your children, my children, and grandchildren. We need not be fearful of each other. There's too much beauty. Look at your bar association. Look at who's online with you. That's a reflection of who we are as a state. That's a reflection of America. What is it to be scared of? We can't allow ourselves to be guided and pitted against each other. There are people whose politic is to keep us at odds. That's been going on for 100, 200 years. Keep us against each other. This day, we need to resolve that we're going to stand up for what's right, stand up for what we know is right, and we need to trust in God that there's enough resources on this earth that we can share some of it. And we should not have people without in a country that has been blessed with so much. The question is, will you individually, will you as a bar association, will we as a profession stand up and be accounted for in this moment in time? My prayer and hope is that we will. Thank you so much, LaShonda, for allowing me to speak. I am always available. This journey has called you to this moment of leadership. Do not take it as just any other position. You have a platform. Your voice and authentic feelings need to be heard, and that's the only way that we share our experience to let other people know the perspective for which we see what's going on. Thank you so much.